I can highlight in multiple colors.
Careful, just make sure it's accessible.
I'll say, yeah, if you're at the last accessibility session and you're talking.
Yeah, I know, it's so extraordinarily inaccessible. Well, it only apply, well, no, actually, it'll be on the video. Let's see what the video looks like. All right. I'm thinking that the recording started, so we'll get going. I'm not expecting anybody else to show up. Everybody was going to the LibGuide session. Who knew? Good morning on the second and currently final day of CALI. So I'm Elmer Masters, the Director of Technology, if you don't know that. And I'm going to be talking about the new theme for the website that we're getting ready to roll out probably in the next few weeks. So we're working on it, but we'll have to see how it comes out. So basically what we're going to do, there we go. So the highlights stuck around. That's no fun. We get rid of the highlights. The stuff that I'm going to show you on the new the theme for the new website is heavily under construction. Actually, just got my hands on the code. We're using consultants to do this, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But I actually got my hands on the code like on Monday at 5 o'clock when I was like leaving like Tuesday morning to come here. So, I mean, I've worked with them, but they've been working in their development environment. And we had to move it over to my development environment so I could see exactly, so I could get it running somewhere where it was in our domain and I didn't have weird authentication things popping up and stuff. So there's a lot of rough spots yet, and I have like a punch list that's like so long, they're going, hey, you might have to cut us another check. So, but we're working through a lot of that stuff. So the new theming things, you'll see some weird things. If it looks weird, chances are I've probably already spotted it, and it's on a list to get fixed. Because like right off on the home page, there's some typos and grammatical errors and that sort of stuff. It's just the sort of thing that's just kind of there because they're working on the theme and not the content, and they've just thrown stuff in to fill out boxes and stuff. So, what I wanted to do for a starter here is take a quick look at sort of what's going on now with the main CALI website, because it runs in Drupal 7, and it's been running, actually, I knew there was a tab I forgot to open before I started. That'd be this one. Hey, look, the conference is on the home page. That's cool. So this is the current CALI website. This is running Drupal 7. It is a custom theme that was finished just about 5 years ago, like right now. And there's conference video of me doing this same presentation 5 years ago, except we were talking about a whole new website, not just a theme. The theme also currently suffers from the fact that I hacked at it and did things like it was in a really narrow, like a 960 wide grid, and it was just too narrow for like some of the stuff. So I destroyed the grid. And so that fills the whole page, which had some weird consequences, as you can sort of see from the way things just goes. You know, things just get really long. But it was a little bit better than all this tiny stuff with huge amounts of white space on the side. Because we know from our analytics that most people are looking at this on 16:9 widescreen laptops. So a 960 pixel wide box to constrain all of your content just ends up with a lot of white space on the sides. And the way that the theme was put together, it just didn't look right, so. So the other thing that we have, that we're hoping to, that we're gonna, whoops, that's good. That was the wrong thing. There, we're doing that. Where's the mouse disappeared? Wrong mouse. This mouse. There we go. Sorry. It's still kind of early in the morning. So we have these giant menus, right? The old mega menu thing. Yeah. Needless to say, as we keep adding more and more topics, the list keeps on getting bigger and bigger. And these windows grow, and you know, and then it's like, well, now what do we do with like this giant list of things? And we have the same sort of thing happens in the ebook space. So we have these giant multi-tiered menus, and again, our analytics, which I'll talk about more in a minute, are showing us that like people aren't using these, right? So we want to kind of revamp those, or actually just flat out do away with them. And then if we take a look, we'll go into the. So now when I click on a topic in there, I then get another list. So we have lots of long lists of things. And it isn't so much that you have to scroll down through them that sort of throws people off. It's just that like it's hard to figure out exactly what it is you're supposed to be doing, right? So, you know, and of course we know because we're here all the time, right? So. And then the way that the lesson lays out, this is actually a faculty view. So faculty have that teaching guide block that sits at the top of the page that lets, gives them access to things like the lesson mapper and the ability to download and that sort of stuff. But the lesson itself is, again, it's a lengthy scroll, and then we have the author's picture at the bottom. The pictures vary in size, mostly because we ask people to send them in, and they do. So people send in pictures, and so we have lots of interesting things. So one of the things we wanted to do is be able to standardize those and sort of rearrange this so that maybe it wasn't quite so scrolly and things could lay out a little bit better. Another thing that we wanted to deal with, oops, hang on. Oh, I'm not having so much fun with my technology this morning. Oh, for bonus points, I think I closed that. That's kind of a drag. All right, hang on one second. Let me open another window, get back in my list. Sorry, folks, watching at home. I clicked on the wrong button, which is something that I tend to do. So open this back on the side. Let's see, where was I? So we went through, yes, we were looking at the lesson, issues with lessons, and let's see, that one. Got it. And we're back on track now. Sorry about that. What I meant to do was that. Okay. So the other thing that happens with the home page, for example, is the search box, which sits in the upper right there. It's sort of not very well defined, and then it disappears, of course, if you scroll down the page. So if you're looking at the site and you scroll down, then suddenly there's no search box. So we wanted to, I wanted to get that fixed so that this was a more prominent thing. A lot of students use the search box, and when they use the search box, they actually find and run lessons. It's kind of awesome. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 80+% of the people that do searches find lessons and then run them. So that's I wanted to make that a little bit more prominent, and and then we're going to work on how that displays and that sort of stuff going forward too. And then there's the colors. Nobody's a big fan of the yellow. The blue's not too bad. So we wanted to sort of freshen all that up and kind of give it a more modern kind of look to it. And then the final thing that
Also, are the colors more ADA compliant, more contrast?
yeah, well, I'll get
New
that.
design?
Yep. Yeah, the new ones got, it's all I forget the acronym.
WK.
Yeah. Yes, and so they checked stuff, as they were designing the color scheme, they checked stuff for contrast and all that sort of stuff, so that they make sure it's better than this. The other thing is that if you look at this on a mobile device, stuff disappears and it doesn't work quite so nicely. But an increasing amount of our traffic, surprise, is on mobile devices. Mostly iPads. We've seen over the past year iPad usage on the site go from practically nothing to, like, the past 7 days, it's been like 20% of our traffic. But it's kind of light right now, so it's not a really good gauge. But during the meat of the semester, right, when we were serving up thousands of lessons a day, 8 to 9% of our traffic was from iPads during that time. So we really needed to look for something that's that was more mobile friendly than the current layout. And part of the reason why the mobile friendly thing, mobile was sort of tacked on 5 years ago as sort of was on the list of stuff that we needed, but we ran out of time and money, essentially. And so it was sort of the last thing that we thought of. So now it's one of the first things we're thinking of. And so the sort of mobile first thing has been in mind all the time. An interesting thing about that is that sometimes certain parts of the site actually look better on your phone than they do on your desktop, which is a weird effect of mobile first. It's not that they look bad on your desktop, it's just when you look at it on your phone, you go, wow, that's kind of cool. So we've had some of that. So as we set out on this project, one of the things that we work with, we run our own analytics tool, right? So we don't use Google Analytics. So none of our traffic information is being stored in Google anywhere anymore. So we run an open source package called Matomo, which is roughly the equivalent of Google. Well, not roughly. It's the equivalent of Google Analytics minus the insane focus on selling you AdWords. I mean, it provides us with analytics without all of the sort of marketing focus that Google has on their stuff. So and Matomo provides us with a lot of interesting data. This is a static slide, and we can take a look at it live. Wrong button. Sorry. We can take a look at it live. So these are our live analytics, like going on like right now. Right. So let me just zoom in a little bit. I'm not going to highlight things because some of these things expose information that's not generally, it's like usernames and all that sort of stuff. So, so it's access to this is restricted. We do use it in some of the reporting that gets done in Zeitgeist and that sort of stuff. We'll be adding more of that to the law school dashboards, which should work better in the new system than they currently do. It provides you with a set of usage data that you can look at all the time. So it's kind of quiet right now, just because, well, it's the first week of June and it's mostly summer session type stuff. So, but it does, Matomo does provide us with with a lot of good information, and we can see things like what students are up to in sort of real time and where they're coming from. And, how many lessons have been run over the last, like right now we're looking at 7 days. So, and you can see, there we go. So we can see like over the last 7 days, 24% of our visits have been from iOS. And when we dig a little deeper into that, that's almost entirely on iPads. So we can see those sorts of things. The interesting thing is that whenever the iPad usage goes up, it's almost always the Mac usage that goes down. So it seems like people have like a Mac and an iPad, and apparently deep pockets. So they, and then Windows like sort of hangs out there somewhere. We did discover an anomaly this morning, just as a quick aside. For the first time in about forever, Internet Explorer has turned up on a list of like the top 5 browsers. This has not happened in like a couple of years. So for some reason there's been a spike in, again, it's a small sample just because there's not a lot of traffic right now. And interestingly enough, it seems to be Windows 7 computers running Internet Explorer 11. And a bunch of them are coming out of US courts. So I think, for some reason, folks at the courts are, you know what it could be? Because they're looking at awards. It's law students checking their awards from their clerkships.
It could be.
Yeah.
We had 2,000 awards last
Yeah, right.
week.
There were a bunch of. I just happened to think of that, right? So they're off and they got their. I wonder how those law students who have been running like Macs and their Windows 10 laptops and stuff are now faced with corporate Windows 7 and Internet Explorer. That should be exciting for them. It's one of those wake-up call things.
I haven't updated that website in 15 years, so it's very comfortable with this traffic.
Actually, it is, yeah. So yeah, that's not a problem. But we are doing an update to awards that we're not talking about yet.
Yeah, we're not talking about it yet.
Yep. So the other thing that we can do with Matomo, which we did in terms of how we wanted, what we wanted to work on with theming, was we can do heat maps. So as an example, this is a heat map. Does everybody know what a heat map is? Okay. So this shows us how people have been looking at the page, right? So this is sort of the basic version. This was 1,000 samples. And you can see that the real hot spot is that search box, as well as like log in and register in the upper right-hand part of the page. And I already knew this from looking at the analytics generally. What we didn't see was a lot of activity in those giant drop-down menus. And also people weren't scrolling down past the fold. We definitely, but that doesn't surprise me. That's kind of the way that web pages work these days. So.
But you're showing the heat map now, right?
Hmm?
It's really washed out by the projector.
Oh, okay. Does this have, wait, let me be able to adjust the lights. Let me just check something. Because I'm looking at it over my over on the back, and it looks great back there.
Oh, that looks fantastic, yeah.
Here we go, does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh.
Yeah, now I can actually see the dots on the logo.
Yeah,
Good.
okay, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, yesterday I got an email, we were sitting in a class and people were having problems, they were trying to fix the lights, and then all of a sudden the lights went down like this, and then I immediately got an email saying, you know, hey Omer, you can use the panel in the front of the room to fiddle with the lights. So we had the heat maps to sort of help us show where like people were going and what they were doing. And then another tool that Matomo provides that we used as we were working through this are, and I'm not sure, can you see, yeah, you can see that a little bit. This is basically, we were able to record sessions.
I can't see that there, but you.
So, yeah, you can see it up there, yeah.
The mouse tracks.
Yeah, the mouse tracks and stuff, and then it ends when they go and log in. Well, it's gonna keep looping, so if you stare at it long enough, you'll be able to see the line. But basically what this does is, this is showing us mouse traffic, where people are clicking, and that sort of thing. And again, we recorded, I forget how many of these I recorded, a whole bunch. I didn't look at them all. Some of them are pretty short. But I did look at ones from where people logged in, a sample of those, to get an idea of how they were navigating through the site. You know, again, they were, it sort of reinforced some of the things that we already knew. They were clicking on the big lesson button, going to the list of lessons, and picking from, the topics, and then hitting lessons. And they were using the search quite a bit. And then they were also following in, I mean, we've had a significant increase in the use of our lesson link tool over the past couple of years. So we see a lot of traffic where people are being sent directly to a lesson and that sort of stuff. And then there's always the people looking for awards. They're always around. All the time. So with the heat maps and the session recordings and the other analytics that we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted to do in terms of getting the new, getting the new site. And this is the only thing you're going to see now. This is not the only thing. We're gonna get into the details on this. We contracted with a consultant who had helped us move the site to Drupal 7 in the first place, and had done the previous theme, and been responsible for that previous theme. We're giving them a chance to redeem themselves. No, they were. No, it looked good when we got to the end like 5 years ago. But man, stuff just ages, right? And our traffic has actually been up over the past 5 years too, because we were sort of bottoming out 5 years ago. So we're looking for ways to sort of make these things, look a little snappier, and just a little bit more performant. Okay, so let's see if I can do this without shutting it down this time. Okay, so we're going to go to here. Okay, good. Okay, so this is the new theme. So we made a lot of changes, right? I mean, there's still some of that yellow, because it turns out that it's like actually a nice color to use for, sort of accent things, right? What we have are a number of shades of blue, which also work, and an overhaul of the fonts, right? So the interesting thing is that when we did the site last time, the serif fonts were the headlines, and the sans serif was, was the text. But I was informed by a designer who knows about these things that that's not how they do it anymore. Now they flipped it around so that the sans serif fonts are the headlines, and the serif font is the text, and so that I like that. The other thing that's interesting, and you really can't see this, but the font that they're going to use, which actually I think I need to look at because this is not the right font. But the font that maybe it is. It's hard to tell. But the font that we're going to use for the site, the sans serif font, actually has no sharp edges. So all the edges around it, so it sort of subtly picks up the logo, which also doesn't have any corners on it. So, because at CALI, we've cut all the corners. No, that's
Wait, what?
Wait, what? Yeah, that's a good tagline. And we also discovered things like there's going to be a set, like Scott's going to get a new style guide for the featured article piece, because all the images need to be a set size.
So I assume you're gonna shrink that down,
Hmm?
you're gonna shrink that down and show us the mobile version of that screen, right?
Yeah. Yes, they will. That's why I had the document camera fired up.
Oh, we
So-
do that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because that, I mean, when you hear today, when you go to consultants or start thinking about web redesigns or reboots, is mobile first. Everybody's like mobile first, mobile first, mobile first. But in the education space, you need a screen because you're doing lots of textual or maybe doing text juxtaposed with images. And so I gotta admit, I was a little resistant to that notion, but.
So,
But then Elmo showed you the traffic
Yeah.
statistics.
okay, so this could probably look better, but hey, because the document camera is triggering, the light from the document camera is triggering the dimmers on the thing. But you get the idea. I mean, that's the same page, and there's sort of two different setups. There's the sort of phone view on the left, and the tablet view on the right. So as things, and then so you can get an idea of sort of how those lay out. And on the desktop view, the image will auto resize as things go from desktop to tablet to mobile. But we do need to have a standard size to start with. So that's going to be one of the things. I mean, we had a standard size in the other one, but you sort of used to be able to fudge it. But you won't be able to fudge it so much anymore because they'll break the smaller ones. So we might have to do, but we'll figure that out. Let's see, switch back to my laptop. So heading down the home page, we have a featured content block now. This is where like new books and lessons and stuff turn up, so that stays. One of the things that we're doing now is we're bringing out some of our dashboardy type stuff out to the home page. So this pie chart, today's hot topics. So what this does is it's just a little query that looks at the lessons that have been run and the topics that they're in for the last, I want to say it's not that, I think it's 24 hours. I forget. It might be shorter than 24 hours, but it's about 24 hours. So it gives you an idea of sort of like what's going on like right now. And when this is done,
The BuzzFeed of CALI.
yeah, it's kind of like the BuzzFeed, right? So we know that like entertainment law.
Trending, that's what.
Yeah, what's trending? Right, entertainment law and of course contracts are big right now. Contracts, here's a pro tip, contracts are always big, and evidence, always big. And then this will link through to those topics and that sort of stuff when it's all put together. So. And that's why it's like still on the development site and not out where like sort of the general public can do that. Because we're still working on it. And then further down, we have a giant-sized search box with like all kinds of, that text is all gonna get replaced. That was just the consultants going, it needs text. I'm like, well, put something in about lessons and things. And so I put it there, so we have a giant search box. The other thing that was missing from the current homepage was something about like, I need to get, how do I register, right? Or how do I get access? So we added an access box. When you're logged in, this box converts over to sort of a list of, do you want to run a lesson? Do you want to read a book? Like sort of stuff that'll take you off to specific resources. And that particular color scheme in that layout is accessible. The contrast is correct. Or at least that's what I've been told. I haven't checked this out. That's what they tell me. And then we've got the giant-sized footer at the bottom that's got like all of our stuff in it. And that needs to be rearranged a little bit too, so I think it needs to be 4 columns instead of 3. So a bunch of this stuff is still in our control, like the ordering of stuff in menus, entirely up to us. There'll be some kind of steel cage death match later this month. Actually, John, we should do it live on the web and sell tickets, pay-per-view, while we argue about what the order of menu items is for the CALI resources section.
Sure, you're
So-
fired. Now, I would like it in this order. Oh, wait, I need to hire you back to do that.
That's right, exactly. It's just, so we'll be ironing out like stuff like the menu layouts and stuff like that. Although, John, I will tell you that we can indeed hire, we can pay the consultants extra money for somebody to tell us what order the menu stuff should probably be in, even though they have no idea who we are or what we do. So
So like every decision, it's like, how much does this matter? In other
Yeah.
words, how many people actually slide in the bottom of websites to click through?
Right, or
So what world are we affecting? That's not to say it's not useful and important to those people, but it lets you get a sense of the scale of the problem you're solving.
yeah, and some of the problems we've eliminated by simply going with a little menu instead of a giant size one, right? So all of that lesson stuff now becomes browse all lessons, first year, second year, and then we put podcasts at the end. Now, of course, we can expand that. We have all that power to add things, and and it might, and it could very well be discussion about like how do people find new lessons and that sort of stuff. And we'll solve all that going forward. But what we knew from the old site was that nobody was really drilling down into that giant list of topics, especially. So now what happens is that you get in and then you can go to, we'll do browse all lessons. So the color the colors change here. So as we move into different sections of the site, some of the colors will change a little bit, that's it's built that way. And so from here, we now have, instead of having a great big long list of topics, what we have now are little buttons, which they're really just styled links. And let me bring that up I'll bring them up on the mobile devices because they look kind of neat on mobile devices. But the idea here is to provide a way to, again, for relatively straightforward access to the lessons and sort of be able to collapse those giant lists of things into something that seems a little bit, or that is a little bit more, it's a little bit more manageable. Let's just switch over to the mobile version real quick.
That looks like the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the font on the home page is a little, I have to look into that exactly. So again, on the mobile thing, it lays out pretty well. And then when you select one of those, what you get is a list of cards that include. So you can get an idea, and they show up 2 across on tablet, and they're on mobile. They're stacked one on top of each other, and on the laptop, on the desktop, you get. So they're a little bit. That's not quite right. They should be bounded like the mobile ones are. Something's not quite right. Oh, can't win them all. That's why it's a work in progress. I could have sworn I looked at this before. Anyway, that card interface from the mobile with sort of the gray background should be turning up here. And I'm not sure it was there before. What can you do? Stuff comes and goes. That's what happens. Another thing that we've added to this page with the cards on it, which isn't showing up, is a little visual indicator if you've already looked at the lesson. So if you've started the lesson or just run it all the way through or whatever, you'll see a little indicator that says lesson viewed on the page. And we used to do that, and then it went away, and students wanted to come back.
We needed it so bad.
Yeah, students really wanted it back.
If it said what your score was.
Right, well, it never said, to be
Or
clear.
how far you completed it.
Yeah, it never said that, so,
I know.
but we can do that. The part where that sort of thing gets tricky is that, if say I've run the acceptance lesson 6 times, right? That whole, like, where does that,
Right, you almost want it almost
Where-
starts to create a dashboard and a little.
Yeah, it's got to create a little, right, you've got to give it some sort of context so that people can, have some idea of where they are. But for right now, the visual that they can see, where they've been, I think works out pretty well. And then that's weird. The read more buttons aren't working either. Something's blocking JavaScript. If I was a betting man, oh, that's why, this isn't logged in. Duh.
You're blaming the system and it's.
I'm blaming the system, and it's because I'm not logged in. Here, we'll log in. Oh, we also added like some fancy little animation stuff to the forms. Okay, there it is. Phew. Holy smokes. I've been awake too long today. So this is the way that the lesson, so this is a student lesson view now. So you see the lesson view indicator there that would indicate that they've already run the lesson. This button is reading right because that button's supposed to be the run one, but it's not. Yeah, there's something not quite right here because that was working the other day. But generally speaking, that's you click there to run the lesson. You can do bookmarks, which we've always had, and then you've got some other information about the lesson itself, including runs in the past 30 days. All this stuff is on the current website. We just sort of pulled it together in one spot. The contracts lessons, by the way, now feature learning outcomes, so those are here. The author information, we've standardized the picture size and we made them round, so it's nice and modern.
Cut the corners again.
Yeah, cutting corners again, and also it also makes some of our authors appear off center. I don't know, but so we do have to be a little bit we're gonna have to sort of maybe raise the bar at least a little bit on what pictures we take from people when they send stuff in. Nice, good professional headshots are always welcome. And then if we look at a particular author's page, again, it's just sort of the standard layout kind of thing. And this hasn't really changed a lot other than in sort of the general kind of theming things. Let's just jump back to contracts topics page. Okay, so now you get an idea of, right, the lesson view indicator turns up on those pages. And things like podcasts, again, it's the same sort of layout, except we actually have the podcast player sits in the middle of the page instead of a run button. So that's that.
Now, is that a contracts podcast?
Well, it's labeled, it's tagged as contracts, at least in this iteration of the
What's the
database.
text of?
It's, I don't know why, it's not
Because
mine.
it says he's,
Right,
it looks like he's
I know
doing
he's not, I
towards
know,
Civ Pro, so that's why I
right,
was.
right, and, I'm not sure.
Probably just a placeholder for now.
Yeah, it might be just a placeholder for contracts, or, I don't know, but,
I think it's topic specific. I think this is more about sort of meta, if I remember.
yeah, it is, and so I'm not sure why torts is there either.
Well,
It should probably
because it doesn't fit into any one category, it fits
Yeah.
into all
It can
categories.
be in many different
Torts
categories.
students and contract students would both benefit because it's
Yeah.
about learning the law. I think that's what this one was. It was a while back.
Yeah, this is an old one, but it happens to be the first one that turns up on the contracts page, which is what I always use for testing, so it is possible that,
Well, so-
again, this is development, so.
Yeah, we're gonna run into this even more with the new fellowship, because this is essentially study skills.
Right, this is study skills, and we're liable to have a new, because I don't think we have a study skills topic, but.
No,
we're
most
about
of
to-
our topics as a list of doctrine areas, and now we're starting to add non-doctrine areas, and that feels like a slippery slope to a messy taxonomy, and that's why we're struggling with this.
Well, whenever you decide, I mean, when it just says this is from a professor, it's sort of like, do I click or do I?
Yeah, it doesn't
I
tell you
have to-
enough to
If
make a
it's a
decision.
contract from a professor, I'll click, but if it's,
Yep,
yeah.
yep. And that, and
Well, actually, it says
every
the
time
class, right?
every time you
Scroll down.
reorganize a website or decide to put things in
I'm sorry,
different
scroll up.
boxes, you start asking
Yeah.
yourself about the language and the descriptives and the presentation and the audiences, and you realize, it's just not that simple anymore, you know?
Right. And the other thing is that this is running against my development database, which has things in it that don't, that
Or
are.
you're just testing for clicking. And
Yeah, we're just testing for
or-
clicking and making sure that stuff's, that the layout and the designs are correct more than exactly. So I'm not sure how this is categorized on the actual data, on the actual website, so. Okay, let's see what else we have here. So some of the things like the CALI dashboard, with things like the lesson run reports for students are basically the same. There'll be some cleanup done because we've got to standardize those boxes that turn up on the right hand, or on the left hand side. But generally the reporting works out and ends up looking about the same, just with sort of the new color scheme. And the same thing will work for things like things like lesson link and auto publish and all the reporting that goes with with student things. The layout, the colors and the fonts are changing. The general layout's staying the same for now. And as we work through more stuff. Let's see this new. And guess what? That didn't change. Although it matches better now.
Yep.
Um, I think, well, that's kind of where I have one more slide that, that demonstrates the amount of stuff that we got into. I mean, we started, at the beginning of March, I think. Was when the engagement started with the consultants, and they're just about wrapping up. This is from our code management system on GitHub, and so you can see that they've made 513 commits. That's things that they've done, been loaded into the new theme and stuff. So. There's been a lot of work, and then but I think we're in good shape. So, questions generally, specifically, in terms of like when we roll this out, I'll have a better idea of that like after Wednesday of next week when I've got the latest status with the. We're hoping to have it out and live before AALL, so that it's what gets shown in the booth, and so that librarians have an opportunity to start updating their
LibGuides.
Yeah, that's in the other room. Have a chance to start updating LibGuides and their different. I want to say Pathfinders. I used to do when I was a reference librarian. I was in charge of Pathfinders, which were printed out, but that was kind of awesome. That to sort of for student stuff, and plus we've got to update our FAQs and stuff with fresh screenshots of things. One thing I didn't show was the registration form works the same, so that doesn't change. Login's the same. Like most of the functionality is the same. It's really just a lot of sort of the higher level look and feel stuff that's changed. So. Alrighty. Any other questions? Yes.
So it's a 777 theme. Is it a sub-theme or something?
Yeah, it's a sub-theme of, I want to say, Aurora, I think. Aurora.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, one of the problems with Drupal 7 right now is that all the development stuff is shifted to Drupal 8. So
Here we go again.
yeah, I know, right? The theme packages like Aurora, and there's a couple other ones that allow for child themes, haven't really been updated in a couple of years. Or like 5 years. And the downside to that is that they don't work easily with a number of the different technologies that have come along, like Bootstrap and the latest versions of jQuery and stuff that have come out in the last couple of years. And a lot of that stuff, the energy that would have been spent building theming in Drupal 7 to make that stuff work is getting done in Drupal 8, and nobody, I mean, this is probably good for 3 years or so. I mean, Drupal 7 is going to end of life, and then we have to decide what we're going to do next. So. Yes?
Why did you decide to stay with 7 instead of moving to 8, looking future forward?
Well, I've got about 24 custom modules, and maybe they all total maybe 10 or 15,000 lines of code, and all of that would have to be completely rewritten into Drupal 8. So, so this was a 3-month project. Rewriting all those modules is going to be a lot bigger of a project. And the thing is all those modules I wrote, so we didn't, so it's not like we've got a consultant around who knows how that works. And they had a peek inside some of them to get them to work with this, and that generates just a ton of questions generally anyway. They're like, why are you doing that? I'm like, well, because it works. That would be the basic answer on that. Although I do try, to use, Drupal 7 best practices, when I'm doing the modules, but, migrating those to 8, it's just a complete rewrite. You can get stuff that'll build skeletons for 8 from Drupal 7, but you still got to do all the filling in. John?
Plus, isn't Drupal, so Drupal itself is on a development arc where it's going less from a collection of website modules and more to an API. And so the underlying architecture between 7 and 8 is significantly different.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it's different enough that you don't just think, well, should we move to Drupal 8? You think, well, what else is out there? And then, unfortunately, that expands your decision space and makes it much more complicated. But if it's the same amount of difficulty to move from 7 to 8
Right.
as it is to 7 to something else like Canvas or
Oh, you mean into like an LMS or something?
or into other
Or into Joomla?
or no, never do that. I don't know.
Right,
just-
I mean-
because there's always more options.
Right.
And different ways to think of it. I mean, maybe we shouldn't be thinking monolithic websites anymore, but microsites, or maybe we shouldn't be thinking, a website at all, but collections of APIs with a bare metal front end, so that other people are, because most of the people are coming in through a search engine.
Right. No, actually, most people type in www.cali.org, they have us bookmarked. We had,
And then you type in the search box.
well, yeah, in the search box on our site, but like people, like we don't get a lot of organic traffic from, we don't get a lot of traffic from search engines, right? That search engines comprise about 15% of our traffic.
And you're not using those search terms.
Is that what it is? I'm not paying a consultant $200,000 a year to boost my SEO. Yeah, so I mean, we could, because people come into CALI from typically the law school website.
Right, from links.
From links or from
For
links that their
yourself.
faculty are provided and that sort of stuff. We do get some traffic from people who type in like, God help me with contracts into Google. And
Really?
I don't know, but we do get, we do get some traffic that way. I mean, we also get referrals from Reddit. So, there's, I mean, stuff comes in from sort of, and that's all John knows out there. But, the other thing about the move from Drupal 7 to 8 is it's not going to be 7 to 8 anyway. It's going to be 7 to 9, right? Because Drupal 8, they're about to, Drupal 8's built on top of Symfony, and which is a PHP-based framework for stuff. And Symfony's about to jump from, I think, 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 or one of those. And so when they do that, they're going to go, rather than have Drupal stick around with an old version of Symfony, they're going to bring out Drupal 9. So, but there's not supposed to be any difference between whatever the last version of Drupal 8 is and Drupal 9. So you should be able to just do a smooth thing, and it's just the only thing that'll change is Symfony, the Symfony requirement. But that shouldn't affect the way that whatever your custom work is gonna, that's what they say. So until that jump is made, like I really don't want to do anything because, who knows where that's gonna go. And, and we already have, like our core data, right? The stuff about lesson runs isn't in Drupal, right? It's just a giant database table that I can pick up and move around. We do all the time. So that can run like anywhere. Like I can build, I can feed that from WordPress or from Joomla if we want to get carried away. And we've been working on how to get user information out and into LDAP, which we've pretty much got nailed down, which gives us that bit of portability too, right? So So, and all of that's future looking about like where we're gonna go after the Drupal 7 thing runs out. Because John's right, I mean, we have a, we don't necessarily need to be tied to a monolithic framework for stuff, and, and there are other approaches to this, so. John?
Well, I was gonna say was, the other thing that seems to be happening in a sort of a meta sense is more more content management is turning into more single-page web app or more better UI UX. So what is the JavaScript framework that Drupal is moving towards, or, you know what I'm saying? Did they have like underlying, not React or Angular, they're not in those wars, are they?
No, because what they're doing is it's all in PHP.
Right, but the UI parts are.
The UI
into-
parts, there are
into
UIs,
JavaScript
in Drupal 8, you can get UIs now that are done in React or whatever you want to use.
So they're going, whatever you want, roll
Headless
your own. But that's where all the exciting stuff is.
Yeah.
Is more reactive,
right?
not reactive, more
Yeah.
interactive.
Right, I mean, they're separating, and this is happening in, kind of across stuff, and, separating the UI from sort of the back end stuff, and, and in Drupal 8 now, you can get, I mean, you can do it in Drupal 7, and it was doable all the way back to Drupal 5 if you were really, really sort of, leaned on it hard, right? That you could sort of pull data out of Drupal and build a Flash front end. I have seen Drupal 5 back end websites with a Flash interface. So
That was huge.
it was huge for a minute, yeah.
Sony
But-
is running like.
Yeah, Sony was running it like that, and Lullabot built that, who were like big Drupal
React,
consultants.
is the one that
React, yeah.
James is saying they're going to adopt.
Yep.
Yeah, so, I mean.
Yeah, they're gonna adopt that
this
for the
is-
front
This is
end.
totally inside baseball for most people, but it makes back-end decisions. It's a really chaotic time in back-end architecting, whatever, because there's so many cool things and there's so many different directions. There's no, it used to be a few choices. And-
Well, for the back end, it's actually not that chaotic. I mean, you gotta stick stuff in it, you gotta organize your data somehow, and there aren't a lot of options for that.
No, there's too many options.
No, I don't think so. A lot of them are just like sort of copies of each other, right? So.
You're not reading the same articles I am, Elmer.
No, I avoid
And
those.
thank God.
I avoid those articles. I avoid those articles because they're just not, I mean, it's like the people getting in an argument about what's better, SQL or no SQL? Or like,
Mongo,
yeah, I know, right? Structured data or unstructured data? I don't know. What are you trying to do? I need structured data for what I do. So
Actually,
there's not-
and that's a key point, is you always gotta be asking the core thing, what are you?
What am I trying to
specifically
do?
you're trying to
Yeah.
accomplish?
Yep.
Because then
Yeah.
that clarifies which technologies will work, rather than I want the new shiny thing because it's the new shiny thing.
Yeah, I mean, you used to see the new shiny thing would pop up and then it'd be like, it's like some front-end framework, and they'd say something like, and then you'd start to look around for like sample applications, right? And so my favorite was to find like a browser-based email client, right? But the thing is that like in like about 99% of the projects that I would look at, it was literally just a web page. It was literally just a web page. I don't care if it was written with JavaScript or however they did it. It was just a web page. There was no connections to because interfacing with an IMAP mail server is not, it's not a cakewalk, right? But these guys were just building like front ends. Well, it's a front end. You figure out the back end. I'm like, well, yeah, but the thing is, when you look at these things, you have to consider the front end and the back end together, right? And
And when you try to make it.
and then you try
Kind of
to do and you try to do what you can with it. I mean, our website is, I love showing consultants our website because we've got about 300,000 registered users who aren't allowed to do anything in Drupal, right? And no anonymous users, right? I mean, anonymous users can't do anything on the website, like other than like look at pages. And that's presented one problem after another as like, because when we hit scale,
Yep.
you know,